Oh yeah. So here I am, you know, super orthodox scenario, and I'm really going with it. You know, I wake up at 6 a.m., sometimes earlier than 6 a.m., so I can make it on down. I'd walk down to the nearest synagogue, which was Moroccan in style. So, you know, and you know, as a Gentile, as a non-Jew, as a goy, you don't really appreciate the variety often. At least I didn't appreciate the variety that happens in Judaism, the same way it does in Christianity. You know, not only do you have the split between the Catholics and the Protestants, but you have, you know, a whole array of different crews doing, you know, similar but different things in the name of the same effort. It's the same way in Judaism. So, but these guys were hardcore to the hilt, and you know, there are a number of things in Judaism that you must do once you're a Jew, and there are a number of things you likewise can't do until you're a Jew, or rather unless you're a Jew. And I stuck out like a sore thumb in these settings as a result. You know, I couldn't put on my tefillin, which is the arm wraps and the head strap, because I wasn't a Jew. Well, what was I doing here at this hour in the morning doing this particular thing if I wasn't a Jew? Well, that gets complicated and so on and so forth. Anyway, I was jumping through the hoops. But I will say that and I was reading a lot, and you know, I was into it. I was in it to win it, and I was learning a lot, and it's fascinating. And culturally speaking, I respect it deeply. I can't respect it like a native, but I do respect it deeply. And it was really at the crunch time that I had problems. I had problems. I find the reason I believe religion exists and is an important force for a lot of people is because it provides guidance. And I know a lot of people might say, well, yeah, guidance is one word for it. It also just indoctrinates and basically, you know, brainwashes. Some people think that. And in some cases it's true. And I'm not saying it depends on the religion, but I'm saying that probably the difference between that Heaven's Gate crew and the leader of the Heaven's Gate crew and a religious leader, the differences were probably kind of nominal. You know what I'm saying? At any rate, that wasn't my take. My take was not, you know, my brain is being overtaken, I'm being indoctrinated, and I'm being brainwashed. Though indoctrination is certainly part of any learning process. And it's important to keep that in mind for you naysayers out there who feel themselves totally removed from any sort of influence whatsoever, or people or parents who don't feel as though they should, kind of, or maybe even older siblings who don't feel as though they should impose will, or not necessarily force, but impose ideals because it might be brainwashing. It's brainwashing regardless. If you don't, you're teaching a certain thing. You're always teaching. It's like I said to a manager, a crappy manager I used to have, you know, it doesn't matter if you're a good or bad manager. You're a manager and therefore an example. So regardless of what you do, you're either a good or bad example, period. You can't avoid being an example. That's why you're a manager. Theoretically anyway, I mean it's because you're a manager, but theoretically that's why you become a manager, because you can be a good example and respect what it means to be an example. At any rate, toward the end of my conversion, I do know that I felt I was being forced, not forced, I was being persuaded to approach Hashem in a way that was not in keeping with my approach to Hashem. And it would have been a non-issue had I not beforehand had an approach to Hashem, which I hadn't even really concretely considered until that happened. You know, when I was working at TGI Fridays, I used to work at Fridays. It was my last waiting job. I spent a lot of time waiting tables, and I enjoyed it. I think it's an important thing that people should do. But I remember at the end of the day, I used to go out on the back porch when I was living in Sherwood, and I would just kind of sit out there and enjoy things. We had a little picnic bench and a neat little patio out there, and I would just talk. And it was in those cases that I would communicate with what I then considered essentially myself, because I feel it was really essentially myself. But in the meantime, I think I had developed, at least in my head, developed a relationship with something. You know, I don't know what, but something. And that kind of came back, as well as a number of, a series of, well, years of experiences throughout the college years specifically, which were kind of dodgy at points. You know, there's some, you know, I had some suicidal tendencies for a bit, really passive aggressive. I used to drive drunk, which is, in my opinion, just, it's passive aggressive suicide. That's just all there is to it. And I am kind of dogging you if you drink and drive, because it is the most irresponsible thing I've done, and I have a feeling it's probably the most irresponsible thing you've done. So let's not do that. Let's not do this. I mean, for legal reasons, it's got its problems, and I'm glad the legal system's there. I give money to the cops to catch people like myself. It's important. Cops aren't bad. Some of them are not exactly good, but the police force, as an important aspect to the polis, it's an important thing to have. You know, if you don't have it, I like laws, not because they keep things nice and orderly, but things safe. You know, if I didn't have traffic signals, that'd be big. I will harp on. I continue to be big on the blinkers. Do you guys use your blinkers? And I've asked a million people this. You know, particularly not a million, but I've asked several people. I've gotten more adamant about this issue as I've aged, and people in Little Rock just seem to be kind of dropping their use of the turn signal. Man, mosquitoes are bonkers. But, you know, I say to people, man, do you mind if I ask you a personal question? Now, it's a personal question. You might be offended. Do you use your turn signal? And so far, 100% of the individuals have said, oh yeah, I definitely use my turn signal. And yet, you know, the percentage of people, maybe it's just the people I speak to. Maybe it's just my sample group. But, you know, it's not 100% on the road, I'll tell you that much. Though I do notice more turn signals used at night. And it seems like people are doing a lot more thinking on the turn signals than I feel they should. Work it into the way you drive. You don't think about having to turn the wheel. You don't turn the wheel just because it's nighttime. Turn the wheel because you're driving. That's how it works. That's how you drive. You have to turn the wheel to get there. I see the same thing with the turn signals. Just use your turn signals. They're there for a reason. You know, I'd be interested to see people, I'd like to see the swap. If you took out automatic stop lights, stop signals on your car, and you substituted the automation for the turn signals. So you'd have to manually tell people when you're stopping, but it would automatically tell you when you're going left and right. It'd be a problem. The reason I suggest this, you know, as an interesting issue is they're both sets of lights, both kinds of signals are actually strapped to your vehicle and given illumination because they're both important. They are. They just know that it's because of the nature of how people tend to be, lax if they can be, you better make the stopping automatic. And, you know, the turning is manual because of a number of things, but we've just dropped it. So I recommend picking it up. It's better for you, better for me. And don't think about it. And I know a lot of you on your cell phones and you're thinking, well, I don't have the hand. Well, maybe you should drop the cell phone. Or get it hooked up the way they do in actually Israel. It's the law to have it piping through your speakers. Now, that doesn't mean they drive well. No, they drive like a bunch of crazies for the most part. But nonetheless, it's a good idea. It's a start. And at least they acknowledge the fact that it's at its root a dangerous scenario. But I do remember, back to the conversion issue, I'm there, you know, a Shabbat, you know, I'm there a week and a half in total. The rabbi who attended the event with me left, we both showed up on a Sunday, I believe. And he left Wednesday. I then stayed that Friday, and I got home the following Thursday. So the rabbi who had kind of got me in with the Beit Din, which is the court, the Jewish court that you go to officiate things. Let me just turn down the tunes a little bit. Yeah, he was there kind of for the short haul, considering the extent of my conversion. That was interesting, and I'm not dogging on him, but what it meant was that I was there. I think it was actually preferable. Everything worked out, I will say this, and I can say this in hindsight with 100% authority. Everything worked out the way it should have. It pretty much, the experience brought me to my knees. On a human level. It wasn't those where like, Judaism really rocked me. It was one of those, because there was a clash at some point between my understanding of Hashem and the religion's approach to Hashem. Because that clash existed, at least that's what I felt. There really isn't a clash at this point. My appreciation of Judaism is much less orthodox. That is to say, legalistic. And I've gone back to appreciating Hashem in everything, the Creator in everything. I've gone back to appreciating, I've actually ramped up my appreciation for the fact that all of this was here way before humans got involved, and certainly before religion got involved. You know, and that's the beauty of it all. You know, this has been here. I mean, we're living in ancient times, you know, and it's not just the history that makes it cool. It's the fact that we're allowed to be here with it. You know, this is a good place to live. Gosh, they really do like me, the mosquitoes.